back to another episode of Creative Writing Advice. I'm JJ Barnes. I'm the author of How to Write a Story, which is out now. It's in paperback and as an ebook. You can get it on Amazon, or you can download it for just 99p directly from the Siren Stories bookshop. All the links are below, so you can find it wherever is easiest for you. And hopefully I will be able to help make your story writing experience a better one. On YouTube, I'm doing the same thing. I am talking about different kinds of writing advice, different topics, things that you can use in your own story that I hope will give you the confidence to write, to get your story told. And I say this a lot, but I do truly mean it. The world needs more stories. Stories are powerful. So let's try and make yours one of them. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to write perspective hopping. So the perspective that you are in your story is the POV, the point of view character. So you're usually going to stick with your protagonist. So your protagonist is the person you're talking about. Now you can either do it, I am doing this, I am doing that, or I said this, I said that. So like you are the writer, is the character speaking directly to the audience, or you can name them. So I'm writing a book at the minute about a woman named Meg, so I do Meg said this, Meg said that, but I stick to her POV. So all the scenes that I'm writing, how the other characters are behaving is how she sees that they are behaving. What the other characters say, like, I'm giving her interpretation of their mood, I'm giving her feelings about it, her descriptions. Not in first person, I'm not saying I said this, I said that, but as if she was. Meg is the one who is describing everything. Meg is the one whose perspective it is. It's Meg's feelings, Meg's interiority you get, nobody else's. Now, sometimes you might want to write from a different person's perspective. So for instance, in Emerald Wren and the Coven of Seven, sometimes I hop out of Emerald's POV and I go into the bad guy, Thaddeus, the antagonist. I go into his POV, you get his thoughts, his theories, his interiority, his goals, his interpretation, like it's viewed from him. The reason you do that is sometimes you want your audience to know more than your protagonist. So in Emerald Wren, Emerald and her friends in this coven are trying to stop Thaddeus. When you jump to see what Thaddeus is doing, you realise things that Emerald doesn't know. You see things that are going to affect Emerald and her story later. And it means your audience is like a step ahead of Emerald and is both excited to see how she deals with this problem, but without knowing how she's going to deal with it. It doesn't spoil it. Hopping into the POV of your villain won't spoil your story. It just gives an extra layer of excitement because you know that something's coming up that your protagonist is going to have to face and deal with. And it's really interesting. You see it quite a lot in films as well. I'm sure you go to the bad guy. I'm reading a book at the minute called Invisible by James Patterson, and sometimes you leave Emmy's POV and you go directly to Graham, who is talking about the people he's burning alive. So you get the things he is doing, and you know as the audience the things, the people he's killing, how he's killing them, before Emmy and the investigators do. So it's a really interesting way of your audience being ahead of your protagonist, but still with them, still experiencing their journey. So hopping perspective can really enhance your story. However, it can ruin it as well, because you want your audience to connect with your protagonist. You want them to be invested in them, to understand them, to get to know them, to care about their journey. Because if your audience doesn't care about your protagonist or feels a disconnect from them, then you're going to struggle to get their motivation to read your story or watch your story. You want them to care. Now, you can have a protagonist who's unlikable, or an unreliable protagonist, or an unreliable narrator, so you don't know if you can trust what they're saying. In A Girl on the Train, you don't know if you can trust what Rachel is saying because she's drunk, she blacks out, and she's confused. So there's a disconnect between her and the audience, but the book still works. I haven't seen the film, but the book still works really well. But it's a gamble, and you have to really be able to connect them in a different way to your story. The best way, the easiest way, the most efficient way, and it's not easy in a negative way, it's a good thing. Connect them to your protagonist. By experiencing your story through your protagonist, your audience then becomes part of them. They care about them, they feel what they feel. If you're careful with your show don't tell, you can really root them and ground them in that person and their experiences. And the more you leave their perspective and hop to other people, the more distance you build up. Which means you might want to stick entirely with your protagonist. And that's what I'm doing at the minute in my book about Meg. I don't leave Meg's POV, I stick with her the whole time. Other books I jump, and it depends really on the style of story you're writing, what you want to accomplish. What is important to remember, don't POV hop, don't perspective hop in the middle of a scene. If you start a scene with a character in their perspective, your protagonist or otherwise, don't then jump, because it's confusing. It throws your audience out because they've been writing with one person and suddenly they're with somebody else, and it's discombobulating. You're like, wait, who am I with now? And it throws you out. So stick with the person at the start of the scene. Now, if, say, you are writing an antagonist character and you're in their perspective and then your protagonist enters the room and you want to hop to your protagonist, you want to perspective hop in the middle of a scene, put a scene break. That is like a little technical tip, I suppose, rather than a craft tip. Scene break and then swap and make it clear immediately that you are in your protagonist POV looking at your antagonist. Make it clear that that scene break isn't leaving the room, it's a scene change in terms of perspective. And that way you can perspective hop within one spot, but you're making it clear to your audience who they're with and what story is being told, whose journey they're joining right now. And it'll just make your book easier to read. And you want your audience to have an easy ride, because the harder you make it for them to read your story, like, the less likely they are to come back and read more, right? Because you read because you want to be entertained, you want to relax, you want to experience a story. And if you're trying to figure out where you are in the story and who you're with and what's going on, you're outside it, you're not consumed by it, you're not experiencing it, you're not entertained because you're part of the story, you're outside the story looking in, trying to work out what the hell you're meant to be reading in order to be entertained by the story. The more times your audience is booted out of that story, the harder it is you'll find to get them to come back. So you want to hook your audience, you want to make their reading experience smooth, so make it clear who you're with and why, and then, yeah, be a better experience for them. So my advice about perspective hopping, but just broken down. Don't hop away from your protagonist too often. Whoever it is, for whatever reason you've joined them for this story, keep them as the main focus. Make sure your audience is rooted with them and grounded in them and is experiencing the story through them. Now, if you're doing multiple protagonists, that's fine, and that's a different subject. You'll hop more frequently, obviously, but try not to go then. If you've got, say, 6 different protagonists or 3 protagonists, whatever, don't then go to too many other people. Just try and stick with the people whose story you're telling. But for one protagonist, one antagonist type story, you want to stay with your one protagonist as much as possible. If you do hop to your antagonist or to an observing character, make sure that it's not in the middle of the scene and you clearly differentiate between whose perspective you're in. Make it clear when you start a scene who you're with. However you do it, it doesn't really matter. You can have a character literally say, "Hi, Sarah," or you can just ground it in a different way. But make sure your audience knows who they're riding with, or it's just going to get confusing. And yeah, you use your antagonist to perspective to excite the plot line of your protagonist, not distract from it or give too much away or make it a bit meh. Use it to enhance it by giving sneaky tricks, by giving sneaky hints and tips about what's to come, but not giving away the whole field, basically. So I hope this has been helpful, my writing advice about perspective hopping. Yeah, I'll be back again next week with more writing advice. If you go to the if you subscribe to this channel, put on the dingy bell. I put out Ask Me Anything on Monday, writing advice on Wednesday and Friday, a chapter reading from my book on Saturday. If you want more writing advice in your life, you can either watch the videos that are on this channel. I've done one with other people. I've got loads of different styles of writing advice over here, so just look through the back catalogue. Or if you want to, you can go to my blog where I've got written articles, again exploring writing advice as well as interviews with authors who are giving their own brand of writing advice. So you can get like loads of different ideas and opinions on how to write a story, which hopefully will be useful to you and will give you the confidence to get your story out into the world. So thank you very much for coming. If you comment on here, tell me about perspective hopping. I always say if you disagree with what I'm saying, it's fine because story is very subjective, and I'm giving you the advice that I find both works for me and I appreciate in stories that I read. So if you get something else from stories and you disagree with what I'm saying, tell me about it, because we can always learn and we can always find out more. So I'm fine with you disagreeing, and tell me about why. And what else? I said website. You can go to my website, which is jjbarnes.co.uk. You'll find links there to all of my stuff. And my social media, you can come chat to me. And yeah, I think that's everything. I always forget, and I edit the video and I'm like, oh, you didn't say this, or you didn't say that. So it's like, I try my best. I am doing what I can. So thank you very much, and I will be back again soon. Bye.